The Absolute and the Relative in Man by J. van der Leeuw, read by Dave Marsland of Cardiff Theosophical Society. The Absolute and the Relative in Man. Relativity is but another way of considering the Absolute. The Absolute is one and many simultaneously. It is the infinitude of fractions, as well as the unity of which all fractions are part. Yet there are not two worlds, one of relativity and one of the Absolute. There is but one world of ultimate reality, the Absolute, which, when approached in its multiplicity, is the relative. This multiplicity of all that ever was or can be is the Absolute, and therefore the infinitely small is as essential to the unity of all things as the infinitely great. Not a grain of dust could ever be taken away from that totality of things, since it is not a detached object, but an inseparable part of a living unity. Platinus illustrates the unity of absolute and relative in the following passage when he says, "On the other hand, there exists another kind of essence, being, whose nature differs from the preceding entirely divisible things, which admits of no division and is neither divided nor divisible. This has no extension, not even in thought. It does not need to be in any place, and is not either partially or wholly contained in any other being. If we dare say so, it hovers simultaneously over all beings, not that it needs to be built up on them, but because it is indispensable to the existence of all. It is ever identical with itself, and is the common support of all that is below it. It is as in the circle where the centre, remaining immovable in itself, nevertheless is the origin of all the radii originating there, and drawing their existence thence." End of quote. The Absolute indeed contains within itself all relativity, as the circle contains within itself the infinitude of rays from centre to circumference. Each ray is connected with the centre, proceeds from the centre, and in the centre all rays are one. On the circumference, however, there are many. While there is unity in the centre of the circle, there is a multiplicity and separateness on the circumference. Thus, in the circle too, unity and multiplicity are contained. In the realization of the Absolute, we have all multiplicity within us as a unity, just as, from the centre of the circle, we see all rays, see the whole circle and its multiplicity in unity. On the circumference, however, where we do not realize the centre which binds all, we may have the illusion that all rays, which we only know at their furthest extension, are separate. The circumference is the realm of relativity. The philosophical mystic travels along his ray to the centre, and from there understands the circle as a whole in one comprehensive realization. The occultist and scientist explore along the circumference, and there gain a detailed knowledge of the world of multiplicity. Every human being, every created thing, is as a ray going forth from the centre of the eternal circle to its circumference. In the centre, whence it issues forth, it is one with all other rays and realizes itself to be the whole. It is all things, it is the Absolute. Where it touches the circumference, it is but one of many, and instead of realizing itself as the Absolute, it gazes upon the world of multiplicity, the world of relativity, where problems arise since the unity of life is lost. Thus in ourselves we are the great mystery, absolute and relative simultaneously. When we look within, piercing through our own consciousness, we can realize ultimate reality and cease to be ourselves by being that which is all things. On the other hand, when we feel ourselves only as a separate ray, we are surrounded by the multitude of other created things and subject to the illusion of separateness, bringing with it the externalizing of our world image and its objectivation as an independent reality. Our consciousness has, as it were, two windows, one through which we gaze on our own world image and behold multiplicity in the world of the relative, and another through which we emerge into the world of the real, where we cease to be the relative and are the absolute. These two apparently contradictory facts form the paradox in the unity of our human nature. In ourselves takes place that mystery which cannot be accomplished by any other means, the quadrature of the circle. In us the eternal becomes time, the absolute the relative. We must guard against the illusion of duality, as if there were on the one hand the absolute and on the other the relative, which then are synthesized in a higher unity. This idea is but an example of intellectual fallacy, and, like most fallacies, is glibly accepted by many, especially when demonstrated by a symbol like that which we have just used, the circle. How easy it is to say that the centre of the circle symbolises the absolute, the circumference the relative, and the two are aspects of the supreme reality. Yet this would be entirely wrong, a mere intellectual superficiality. There is but one reality, the absolute, which we may, if we wish to do so, symbolise by the circle containing within itself the multitude of rays. A circle, however, is not a combination of centre and circumference, but is essentially radiation from a point. The worldview of the separate ray which has travelled away from the common centre is the relative view. Surrounded by the many other rays, the individual ray feels itself as separate amongst other creatures and is conscious of a world of relativity. But the absolute is ever that beyond and beside which naught is, and not in any way the opposite of the relative. The relative is eternally contained within the absolute. In the world of relativity, we can never come to the realization of truth, since there we are always subject to the illusions due to the objectivation of our world image. The relative cannot express the absolute, and ultimate reality or living truth must ever remain a paradox to the intellect which is subject to the world image. It is only in the world of the absolute that we can come to a realization of truth and can know reality by becoming it.